Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Now today we're doing an apprenticeship special. We've got on some awesome guests from Morgan Sindall, Larkin Gowan and Superstructures Engineering to talk to us a little bit more about their apprenticeship journey. And it's brilliant because we've got such a varying sort of level they're all studying at and different experiences. So let's bring them all on to talk a little bit more about apprenticeships. Folks, welcome. How are we all doing today?
Great,
thank you.
Thank you.
It was buzzing us like it's nearly Friday, the weekend's nearly here. Now, first question, have you all got coffee or hot beverages to hand? Otherwise you can't come on Careers and Coffee.
Near enough.
Yeah.
Near enough. You're all within half a mile of a kettle. That's a good start. Now look, let's kick off. Liam and Jake, tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Liam. I'm a apprentice structural engineer. I've been at Superstructures for 2 years now, and I work day to day doing construction design, calculations for buildings, going out on site, etc. And then I get my 1 day a week to do uni work alongside that. So that's pretty much what I do.
Fantastic. And Jake?
Yeah, so I'm Jake. I started this September at Superstructures, and I do the same kind of thing as Liam, alongside obviously learning all the basic stuff that we'd need to know. And yeah, it's been really good so far.
Good stuff. Happy day. And Alicia?
So I'm Alicia, and I'm an ACA graduate trainee at Larkin Gowan. So I've been there for about just over 2 years now. And I work as part of the audit and advisory team. So we go out on client side, perform audits, and just also do help with the preparation of financial statements as well. So that's part of what I do every day. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Liz, what about yourself?
So obviously I'm Liz. I am an apprentice site manager. I've been with Morgan Sindall since September. Part of my day-to-day stuff is basically going around on site, managing subcontractors, snag works and scheduling and programming.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. Now, Liam and Jack, I want to come back to you guys. So how did you find out about the opportunity with Superstructures, and what really drew you into going forward and taking on an apprenticeship?
Well, I'd always been into sort of construction and how things go together and that sort of thing. And I found out about Superstructures when they came in for a chat. My college that I was at, Suffolk One, they held apprenticeship events and things like that where companies would come in and Superstructures came in. And I saw the opportunity to go and have a chat with James, and I went and spoke to him about it and sort of got talking from there, sent a couple of emails across, and then my career sort of progressed from that moment, really.
Then all the dreams come true. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Jake, is a similar situation for yourself?
Yeah, I was very similar. I went to the same college that Liam did, and they did various open days and things where they came in and we did tasks and challenges with them, and that was quite interesting to start. And we had careers open days that I actually spoke to Liam when he was there, and that was one of the things that the more and more I learnt about it, the more I thought it would be something for me and for the future. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Alicia, what about yourself? Because you're level 7 apprentice.
Yeah, so I'm slightly different to all the other guys. So I actually went to university, and once I'd graduated, I just wanted to I took some time off, did some traveling here and there. And then I wanted to do a professional qualification in accountancy, because obviously I'd studied accounting and finance at university. So once I started looking at the opportunities, I noticed obviously there's apprenticeship with Larkin Gowan. And I just basically, that's how I found out, was just doing my research really on the companies. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Liz, same question for yourself.
Kind of the same as Alicia, actually. I left college doing level 3 BTEC and looked into different apprenticeships. We did also have a meeting with Morgan Sindall, and from there just really enjoyed the look of Morgan Sindall as a company and the values that they had. applied to a couple of other ones, ended up getting summer placement with Morgan Sindall, and it really led on from there.
Fantastic. And I know that, perhaps previously and up to sort of now to a certain degree, that there's always a bit of a stigma around apprenticeships, and that it's sort of the lesser thing to do. Have you sort of felt that way, or did you have any sort of pushback from other folks and, oh, don't do an apprenticeship, do this? And why did you then continue to pursue it? And anybody can answer that.
I think apprenticeships are looked down upon compared to a uni degree, but I think personally, in my opinion, to get a degree apprenticeship is kind of like a golden ticket, really. Like, you get your degree as well as the work experience, and they work alongside each other as well as a job. It's everything you could really want, rather than having to go off to uni, pay all the debt and all that sort of thing. It's all there already.
Fantastic. Any other comments on that one from any other guests?
I just wanted to add, obviously, when I did my university degree, I actually didn't know there was apprenticeships available. So that meant I didn't have the informed choice that I could make, saying okay, these are my pathway of achieving the same sort of professional qualification as well. So I think opportunities like this is such a good way so that people can actually learn about the opportunities available in terms of apprenticeships and what sector, what industries are available. So I think it's really amazing what you guys are doing, and just trying to promote apprenticeships in general, because I think it's important for everyone to know that there are these options that exist before they can make an informed decision. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely
Thank
agree
you.
with that. For me personally, I think there was definitely a stigma, like you said, Jordan, about apprenticeships. I always almost grew up in school assuming that it was where you went if you didn't get the grades at GCSE, but applying to them, I think it's actually a hell of a lot harder to apply and get an apprenticeship, because there's not as many of them, and there's a very high competition for them, especially with all the benefits they come with, and obviously you're free from debt, and it gives you that job security, and that's obviously very important at the moment with COVID.
And talk me through that process for you, for example, Liz, from when you thought, right, I want to do an apprenticeship at Morgan Sindall or any other sort of places that you're considering. What's that process from sort of first considering it right through to your first day?
So when I was at college, I also really enjoyed art. So I was actually considering going to university to study art instead of construction. So when I was looking at that, then I kind of almost shifted my ideas, and then the apprenticeship opportunity came up, and I looked at work experience. So I actually did 4 weeks of virtual work experience with Morgan Sindall. That led me on to get a interview for summer placement that I started back in June. And then once I was on site, and couldn't get me off really. So I then joined on and carried on through September.
Fantastic. And Alicia, what about yourself?
For me, it was slightly different, because obviously I had applied for the apprenticeship for Larkin Gowan. So for me, because I'd done the university degree, so I went from there to doing the apprenticeship. So yeah.
Fantastic. And for Liam, Jake?
Very much sort of similar, yeah, just applying. Yeah, it's the same really. I mean, there's not much more.
Brilliant. And we've just got a question in. So when you tell people you're an apprentice, do they assume you're in the trades, like a plumber, etc.? Has anybody had that?
All the time.
I think
Really?
Originally,
all the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Who's going to Liam, and then we'll go to Liz.
I think originally apprentices were more seen as building trades and things like that. But I think as they've become more of a wider, because you see more and more apprentices now coming out in all sorts of sectors. I think they are becoming more of a widely used thing by companies that are actually probably more, you're more included in the way that as you develop, you're growing up with the people that you're working with, as opposed to coming out of university and not having those on-the-job skills that you might have doing an apprenticeship. So yeah.
And just on that, before we go to Liz, so how important are some of those soft skills that you're developing whilst being on your apprentice to your employer?
I think it's certain communication skills and things like that, and problem solving that you might not necessarily get at university, because at university you might have set ways of doing things that you learn, whereas in actual practice you might have 5 different ways of doing it, and there might be an easier way, or there might be a more effective way of doing solving a certain problem. So I think it's that kind of experience that you get where you can look at things and know if something's going to work or if something's going to be effective, as opposed to coming out of university and knowing all of the facts but not necessarily having it in practice to different situations.
Thank you for that. And Liz, yeah, you were talking just there in terms of that when you say you're an apprentice, most people then just assume you're in the trades, such as a plumber. You've had that.
Yeah, definitely. When I say like, oh, what do you do for a living? I'd say normally like construction, in the construction industry as an apprentice. And when you say construction and apprenticeships, I don't think there's a lot of people that consider all the management behind that, and the site management and the site foremen, as well as all the quantity surveying and other sectors like that within construction. So there's definitely a direct path for people to think, oh, so you're a carpenter or something like that, which isn't bad. I think it's quite exciting seeing people like almost shocked that, oh, really? That's interesting, because not everyone's always aware of those things.
Brilliant, thank you. And yeah, just on the application process, how important are some of the outside roles that you do, voluntary or sort of hobbies and interest, when applying? So Jake, for example, I know that you do a lot of outside of work around 3D printers. Is that something that you've then referenced within your application, and how important are some of those aspects to it?
Yeah, I think some of the skills that come along with that kind of thing can be used to your advantage in a workplace. And yeah, I think the different hobbies and things that you do outside of work are really important, because you get those diverse different skills that you can use in ways that you might not think you can at work.
Brilliant. And what about anyone else who's sort of taken any hobbies and interests and voluntary roles, and that they sort of put that in their application process? Has anyone else done that?
I think in terms of work experience is a big thing. Like if you're applying, that tends to do well for you if you've done work experience in that field, or you've had a little bit of like I say, a little bit of experience behind your application, so you're not going straight into the job, sort of not know what's going on, not know what you're doing. I think it's good to sort of have a little bit of knowledge behind what you're applying for.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've just got a question for Alicia. So what was the biggest shock for you from coming from university to then go on to the level 7 in a workplace?
I think, like, obviously when you're at university, you're in such study mentality, so you kind of like study, and then you try and do like work placements during summer and stuff. So then having to move on to doing like sort of full-time job where you're actually going to be studying and working, so that felt like a bit of challenge at start, because it is difficult to manage your time wisely and just efficiently to make sure you're working and studying. So I think that would be like my biggest sort of challenge at the start of doing the apprenticeship, which is managing my work and study.
I feel like it's something none of us ever really master. And I mean, just talking about challenges, again to Liz, Liam and Jake, what have been some of the challenges that you've faced since starting your apprenticeships?
For me personally, it's been sort of balancing the university and as well as your working life. So trying to find time to do them both. I mean, luckily here we get 1 day a week, but not every apprenticeship allows that. So yeah, in terms of where we are, we're very lucky, but that's the hardest thing, is trying to find time to do both uni work and your actual work, because balancing doing uni work on its own is hard enough, let alone with a sort of full-time job next to it. I think that's the main thing. Yeah. And
Jake, similar sort of challenges for you?
Yeah, I would say the same kind of things. Learning those skills at the start is probably one of the most important things. And I'd say that it probably is the balancing. But you do learn a lot doing and completing the work that you need to do outside of university. And I'd say there's probably just as much potential in learning and doing the work as there is doing the university stuff.
Brilliant. And Liz, any challenges that you faced since starting your apprenticeship?
Definitely not necessarily on the side of doing the learning and working at the same time, but certainly in work I find there is a hell of a lot of paperwork on site that site managers have to fill out. So I think learning those processes within my company that are specific obviously to that company, I think that can be quite daunting sometimes, especially when it all floods on your paper at one day. So but there's always, I think there's a lot of infrastructure behind all of those things, and there's a lot of people that you can turn to as well within a business, that can always help you, especially even with your apprenticeship. If you're not too sure on certain questions that you're studying, for your different assignments that you've got to do, there's always someone to ask, and they provide you with different resources, books and stuff. And I don't know about other companies, but I know Morgan Centre, we do online learning as well. So we have certain different, either that might be a roofing topic, for example, or it could be something like mental health that will come out, and everyone within the company has to then do that, which I think is really helpful as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And we just got another question. So, what advice would you give someone who is nervous about applying for an apprenticeship? Go to Alicia on that one.
I don't think, I think the most important thing is just making sure you're confident with your application, and just, applying for apprenticeship is just a process where you would fill the application and you would just go and attend the interviews and just do maybe like some tasks and stuff. So don't think of it as like your life depends on it, because I think that's where you probably build up a bit of like nervousness on it as well. So I think just be confident in your approach and what you want to do, and just go for it. And once you are on the job, then you'll be able to figure out if it's something that you actually enjoy doing or not, So I think just getting that practical experience, and trying to get as much work experience as possible, I think that should probably be your like short-term goals in terms of gaining all the expertise and knowledge, and just finding your own passions and your own interest.
Great advice, thank you. Anyone else want to comment on that? So, what advice you'd give to someone who's nervous about applying for apprenticeships?
I suppose it's a bit daunting at first, having to sort of email around companies asking if they offer apprenticeships and things like that. So I can see why it would make someone nervous, but unless you ask, you don't know, and you've got to go for these things. Otherwise, these opportunities get snapped up. So I think once you're in the process, it's not so daunting. Everything's taken nice and slowly, and before you know it, you'll be well on your way.
Good stuff. Happy days. Next question. So, did you know much about apprenticeships whilst you were in high school? Go to Liz on that one.
I didn't, if I'm completely honest. I knew that I was looking at architecture. I knew there was an apprenticeship for that, but at the time then I think it was getting switched. So then you couldn't do an apprenticeship in architecture. It was actually, you had to do 7 years at university first. So that obviously shut that off for me, because I couldn't do university for 7 years. That's too much debt, personally. But no, I didn't really know about any others. Obviously, I knew there was a lot of apprenticeships in trades, but I was more focused on like money, having money so that I could be comfortable and pursue other hobbies that I had, as well as being comfortable financially. And that was one of my aims that I was looking at during high school and moving out into college, really. But I certainly think once after that high school section and you go on to either A-levels, I think A-levels, they certainly push a lot of university, and then when you go to college, they really push apprenticeships. So I think there is a bit of a divide with which step you take after high school.
Brilliant. And Alicia, what about yourself?
I actually had no idea apprenticeship even existed when I was in high school. So in hindsight, if I had obviously known, like after college, I could have done like accountancy apprenticeships and gone that way. Maybe I would have made a different choice. But at that time, I really didn't know. So I think, this is a good opportunity for people to know that these opportunities exist, and that they can go for it.
Brilliant. And gents, what about yourself?
Yeah, I completely agree. Nothing was ever mentioned about apprenticeships, unless I think teachers at high school were very much in the mindset, like we spoke about earlier, of an apprenticeship as a trade or something like that. They never really gave us any insight as to the other apprenticeships that are out there, which is why this is so good, because it's giving people an insight to, oh wait, there actually is options other than going to uni or going into trades. I think it's a common sort of area that high schools need to work on, is working out what other options there are.
I can definitely agree with that one. And one last question, just kind of conscious of time as well. For anybody out there who's, been through the last few years of COVID and who's at school and all those wonderful teacher assessment grades and the rest of it, who's then considering their next pathway, what's your advice to them? And anybody can kick off with that.
I would personally say don't let those grades dictate what you can do. Because obviously, if they are teacher assessed and stuff, and I know it has been a hell of a really tough couple of years, don't let that stop you. Make sure you still knuckle down and you do your research, because at the end of the day, when you go to that interview, they're just looking at you. Your grades are just on a piece of paper. So, and I think that makes a massive difference. As long as you come across that you're interested, you're determined, you know about their business, and that's really important as well in an interview, then I'm sure they'll create an interest for you and maybe even provide you with somewhere to go.
Brilliant. Liam and Jake?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
In unison.
You're not you're not completely governed by what you get on that bit of paper. You have to go to your interviews and you have to sell yourself as what you can bring to the companies and things like that. And it's not everything is, like I say, governed by what it says from your results. Your personality can make a bigger difference than what. I mean, admittedly, you still need to work hard and try hard and to get the best you can, but it doesn't limit you to what you can do. There's always a way to get further.
Excellent. And Jake?
Yeah, I think it's all about doing your research and seeing what fits you specifically. So looking at all your interests and passions and what you're good at and knuckling down on that kind of thing. So there's loads of things out there. It's just a case of finding it. And I think that's some of the issues that people come into, is that you might not think there's an apprenticeship or something that you can do in it. But when you look online and delve deep into it, there's so many things you can do. It's all about research and looking out and selling yourself and believing in what you can do and proving that to an employer.
Brilliant. And finally, Alicia?
I think what I would like to add on to what others have already said is maybe I would encourage all of the individuals to be a bit proactive. So there are lots of careers events that they can actually attend, like in person or virtual like this one, so that they can really speak or hear stories of people who've actually done it. And I think it's a great opportunity to meet people from different industries, different fields, because normally, like with this one, we've got apprenticeships from different sectors. So then you'd be able to share about like what you actually learn, what you actually do. So I think that way, being proactive and just attending these kind of events to get an insight and seeing what is your passion and where your interest lies, so that you'll be able to select the apprenticeship that probably offers you the best, where you can reach your own potential.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Folks, that was brilliant. Thank you for all joining. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned lots about apprenticeships, so I definitely know students have. So yeah, huge thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So folks, that's the dream team of apprentices from some brilliant organisations talking to us a little bit more about what they've been getting up to, the challenges, but also pathways into apprenticeships, and also their advice if you're ever considering it. So huge thank you to everyone for joining Careers and Coffee. And obviously be sure to tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30. Thanks.